Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Minteh. Thank you for being patient while we set up the connection. Dr. Minteh, this is your second time testifying before the TRRC. Could you kindly affirm that you would speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I'll speak the whole truth, but nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Dr. Minteh, and kindly speak into the microphone so that we can hear you. You previously testified before the TRRC, and on that occasion, you talked about the coup d'etat of 22nd July 1994. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, today we would want you to talk about the events of the November 11, 1994 event. Are you able to talk about that?
Absolutely, sir. I will be able to talk about that.
Unfortunately, I can barely hear you. Let me try use of the earphones and see whether. Oh, I've been made to understand that the audio is barely audible, both on the microphones and the speakers around us. So perhaps we should allow the technicians a little bit of time to work on this. I see the volume is being upped. Can you say something, Dr. Minteh?
I can hear you very clearly from my end.
We can also hear you very clearly now. With the permission of the chair, we would proceed with Dr. Minteh's testimony. Yes, Dr. Minteh, we won't go back to your personal details, but just please confirm that your name is Dr. Binneh Minteh.
Yes, sir, I do.
And you confirm that the biographical information you have previously provided are correct.
That's correct, sir.
You were a soldier with the Gambia National Army on 11 November 1994, correct?
That's correct, sir.
And some important event happened in the country on 11 November 1994, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Could you give us the historical background of that event, starting from post-July 22nd, 1994?
Absolutely, sir. In November 11, 1994, gallant sons of the Gambia attempted to dislodge the regime of Yahya Jammeh and restore constitutionality.
Could you kindly give us a bit of background to that attempt to restore constitutionality?
Shortly after the July 22nd coup, 1994, the Gambian security and political landscape was very polarized. There was a lot of discontentment, dissatisfaction, and there was wanton human rights abuses taking place across the country. And as a former gendarmerie officer, I started thinking about how to change that direction our country was heading towards. But I was not the only one who was thinking along the same lines. Whilst in my thought process, I was approached by a colleague who was my classmate, Lieutenant Abdullah Fall.
Lieutenant Abdullah Fall, is he known by any other name?
He is known as Dot Fall. We call him Dot from Armitage High School.
Dr. Minteh, the echo is really getting more pronounced. Well, for now, I think it has gotten slightly better. Could you continue your testimony and we see whether it will still remain stable as it is at the moment? Kindly go ahead, please.
Okay, great. So I was approached by a colleague of mine, Dot Fall, Lieutenant Fall. But when he approached me, there was already a plan in place. So as he explained the situation to me, I made it clear to him that I was also reasoning along the same lines because we could not afford our country to head to a wrong direction.
You told this commission that he approached you and he told you of certain things and you are already thinking along those lines. Could you kindly let us know what was it he told you he was planning to do?
Well, he made it clear to me that the military junta betrayed the guidelines, the principles that led to the July 22nd coup in the first place by deciding not to go back to the barracks, by deciding to head a transitional government that was contradictory to the principles outlined in the manifesto that define the coup of July 22nd, 1994, one. And number two, he made it clear to me that what was happening in the Gambia under the junta in terms of human rights abuses was not something Gambians want to see continue. Because before the coup, we were a society with values, with norms, and to see public officials, former government ministers humiliated, degraded, and this includes even senior officers, was something that we cannot just let continue in the country. In fact, he made it clear to me that the military junta, they were even contemplating to embark on extrajudicially executing all former government ministers, senior military officers, and senior public officials. This, the former chairman of the vice chairman, Sana Sabali, Edward Singate, indeed mentioned that to him on 2 occasions when they rounded up former government officials and dehumanized them, put them in trucks and brought them to Fajara barracks on 2 occasions. Then Lieutenant Abdullah Fall Dot was the adjutant. When they brought them to the barracks, what they usually do is they ask for the soldiers to go and get the adjutant. So Dotfal would come and open the commander's office, his office. So in front of those offices, that's where the public officials were paraded. In fact, on one occasion, when the council members came there, Panasabali, Edward Singate, and Sadiq Hydra, with former government officials, Dotfal requested that I should go with him, but I vehemently refused. He was getting sick of it. He just went and opened the offices, and he gave excuses. He came back to his quarters, because I used to be living in the same quarters with Dotfal at Fajara Barracks, right across the street from Tropics Garden Hotel. I don't know if it is still there, but old Tropics Garden Hotel. So Dotfal confided these things with me. And he made it clear that that was not the reason why they overthrew the former PPP regime. Additionally, he made it clear to me that the military coup was geared towards restoring confidence in public institutions, in terms of fighting corruption, in terms of promoting transparency, accountability. And what we saw happen, according to FAL, was that the way the members of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council were acting was a total contrast to those principles outlined in their manifesto. Because yes, please.
Sorry for interrupting you, Dr. Minteh. You said when you met Abdullah Dotfal, he lamented the fact that the AFPRC regime was maltreating former government ministers of the Jara administration, and they were also committing other rights violations, human rights violations. Did he make any other, and the need, of course, to restore constitutionality, did he make any other complaints against the Jammeh government?
Yes, he did.
What were they?
Another complaint that he brought up was the fact that the AFPRC, the council members, the way they were acting in terms of assigning themselves, giving themselves luxury housing, paying themselves lump sums of money as a result of their pervasive intrusion into government reserves, their seizures of private properties owned by prominent Gambian citizens, their lifestyle, which was characterized by driving expensive cars, was a total contradiction to the principles and guidelines outlined in their manifesto.
As a result of these complaints or these disagreements with the Jammeh government, what did Fall tell you he wanted to do to solve this problem?
Well, Fall's points were largely based on removing the AFPRC regime, restoring constitutionality by appointing a transitional government whilst the military goes back to the barracks, because that was the original plan that informed the July 22nd, 1994 coup. None of the military officers were supposed to be part of any government. It was supposed to be headed by purely a civilian transitional government. So Fall, in a nutshell, argued that the only solution was to end the AFPRC regime and restore constitutionality by appointing a transitional civilian government, and that they were in consultations with some senior and respectable citizens who could do that.
How he proposed to end the AFPRC regime and restore constitutionality.
Well, he proposed a coup by forcefully removing them.
As at the time Fall approached you, you also harbored a plan of your own. Were these plans different?
Well, they were actually not different. It was in the same line of thought.
Essentially, you were also thinking of carrying out a coup against the Jammeh administration. That's what you're saying?
Essentially, I was also thinking about ending the AFPRC, and I was actually assessing the situation, and it happened very timely that Fall brought the same plans up with me, that he was also in consultation with a lot of other officers, and based on the factors that he outlined for me, I immediately got on board, because I was with the view that when we combine our efforts, and since we all meant well for the country, to end all that mayhem that was happening, to end the plundering of resources that was happening, to end the criminal enterprise that overshadowed the country, that took the country hostage at the time, I supported Fall's idea, and I told him I was ready to meet the others.
Thank you very much, Dr. Minteh, for that answer. Yahya Jammeh and the AFPRC took over the reins of government on July 22nd, 1994. The coup d'etat you people were planning occurred on November 11, 1994. Can you tell us at what stage you were approached by Abdoulaye Fall when you had this conversation? Can you give us a timeline, please?
It happened, actually, it was about 2 months after the July 22nd coup.
That would put it in September.
About 2 months.
Sorry, could you say again?
Sometime around September.
You also told us that Mr. Abdoulaye Fall told you that they are in discussion with senior or important members of the society. Were these people civilians, or you are referring to soldiers?
Well, he made it very clear to me that the transitional government, if we end the AFPRC regime, would be comprised of prominent Gambian civilians
On that particular point, did he mention any names to you?
Well, he did mention names to me, but
Could you
for security reasons, I would definitely like to share that confidentially with the council, the commission, actually.
I would have preferred that you say them publicly since we are in a public hearing, but since you have reservations about that, you send us later a list of these individuals who were supposed to compose or comprise the civilian government that would replace the AFPRC. So you send us that list later. Is that a workable solution?
Well, he did not present me with a list. He just mentioned the name of a few prominent civilians that they were in consultations with, and others they were considering who would lead the transitional government.
So are you in a position to provide us with a list of those individuals, or you are not in a position to do that?
No, I'm not in a position to provide you with the list, but I could tell this commission a few prominent citizens whose names came up during my discussions with FAL.
Do you know whether in fact these individuals, these prominent civilians, had already been contacted and informed that a coup was in the making, in which they were being contemplated to be included as civilian leaders?
Well, I was not in a position to establish that, but the fact that he said to me they were in consultations, especially after he mentioned one or two names, I found these people to be very credible, highly respected citizens who had spent most of their lives in public service for the greater goodness.
We missed the last few words that you uttered. At least I didn't hear them.
I mean, I said he just mentioned to me that they were in consultation with prominent, distinguished Gambian citizens, civilians of course, who spent most of their life as public servants to protect the greater goodness of the Gambia.
Was he referring to politicians?
He was referring to, there are some politicians, absolutely.
Very high in the former government?
Well, there was one politician who was a very highly respected figure in the former government.
Also very high in the Jame government at the time?
Not in the Jame government.
And did he mention soldiers who were involved in this planning?
Absolutely. When we continued our discussions, he indeed made it clear that the initiative was led by the late Lieutenant Basiru Barrow, May his soul rest in perfect and eternal peace. That Barrow was committed to ending the AFPRC regime because the regime contradicted all principles and guidelines outlined in the manifesto that supported the July 22nd, 1994 coup.
Did he mention other soldiers?
Well, yes, apparently I was fortunate to meet Barrow. Myself, I know Barrow in person. So as we proceeded with our discussions from time to time, during those periods, Barrow would come to Fajara Barracks. I remember Barrow came to Fajara Barracks once. I had discussions with him myself, and I had discussions with him at Yundum myself. And during one of my discussions with Dr. Fall, it came to my knowledge that a very close colleague of mine, Lieutenant Lamin Jaju, was also a part of the plan, because they all walked into the office and they met me discussing with Fall at the time. So I was able to know all the officers and all the NCOs, non-commissioned officers who were involved.
We are now trying to establish the information that you received from Barrow and the information you received from Fall. You started by discussing the information you received from Fall, and then you move on to your meeting with Barrow. But perhaps we should take it a step backwards and talk about your discussions with Fall. Did he tell you the soldiers who were involved in this planned coup plot, including, of course, Basiru Barrow?
Well, he did mention to me that about 70 to 75% of the army was behind this plan. And this included men in Fajara Barracks, men at the Yundum Barracks, and of course, even at the State House. We had operatives at the State House. In fact, when he mentioned to me the operatives at the State House, that was when I raised a red flag. In fact, I mentioned the name of one operative to your investigator, who I was exchanging emails with back and forth about my concerns about that operative in particular.
During these discussions, were you told who the leaders of this coup plot were? You mentioned he indicated that Lieutenant Basiru Barrow was the leader. Did he mention any other officers as leaders in this plot?
Absolutely. In a military institution, when we undertake operations, obviously the officers are normally the leaders of the operation. They take charge. So obviously, if we look at November 11, 1994, Lieutenant Basiru Barrow was the leader, and it included myself, of course, since we were all officers. It included Lieutenant Fall, It included Lieutenant Lamin Jaju, Lieutenant Buba Jame, Lieutenant Momodu Lamin Dabo, Lieutenant Momodu Mane, Officer Cadet Silla, Lieutenant LF Jame, Second Lieutenant LF Jame, Second Lieutenant Abdullah Ba. So of course, we were, and some senior NCOs. There were warrant officers who were also part of the efforts to restore constitutionality.
Hatched. What did you have to do as a group to put together your plan?
Well, as a group, we had a plan of operation, and the operation spanned from Yundum Barracks to Fajara Barracks. We would have 2 platoons mobilized from 2 to 3 platoons mobilized from Yundum Barracks to go and storm the State House in collaboration with the operatives there. And then we had platoons that would come from Bajara Barracks to serve as reinforcements to support the State House operations. We also had small teams of 5 to 6 who were assigned to go and arrest former council members, the council members from their respective residences. So that was the plan of operation.
When was this operation to take place?
This operation was to take place on the eve of November 11, actually. It was to take place at night. It was a Friday. Yeah, it was supposed to take place at night.
Can you tell us from which point were the operations to commence? From which barracks was the group or the first 2 platoons or companies that were to attack State House? From which barracks were they to come from?
They were supposed to come from Yundum Barracks.
Under whose leadership?
It was supposed under Lieutenant Basiru Barrow's leadership. He was supposed to mobilize with 2 to 3 platoons, and reinforcements were supposed to join them at the State House. That would be another 2 platoons from Fajara Barracks. And at the State House, we had operatives who were supposed to open the gates. We even had men who were supposed to arrest and tie the chairman, Yaya Jammeh. He was very lucky.
Are you suggesting that you had operatives within State House itself who were part of your group and were tasked to also participate in attacking Yaya Jammeh?
Absolutely.
What signals, if any, did you have, excuse me, to notify the other groups to be ready or to deploy?
Well, we were supposed to wait for troop movement from Yundum Barracks. As soon as Barrow gives the green light, as soon as he moves with the troops from Yundum, even the small units who were assigned from Fajara Barracks to go and arrest council members at their residences were also supposed to be in motion. They were supposed to go and arrest Edward Singate, arrest Sana Sabali, arrest Sadibu Hydra, arrest Yankuba Ture.
Do you now recall who was assigned to carry out what task?
Well, this happened almost 22 years ago. Memories may fade, a lot has happened, but I can fully remember that surgeons, there were surgeons, there were warrant officers, in some cases there were second lieutenants who were tasked to arrest these council members. I know for a fact a second lieutenant was supposed to lead the team that was supposed to go and arrest Sana Sabali at his Fajara residence, which was the former residence of the former vice president under the Jawara regime.
On the day appointed to conduct this operation, that is the 10th November, is it, or the 11th November? When was it supposed to take place?
Well, the operation was supposed to be carried out the night of it was November 11, the night of November 11, leading to November 10th, leading to November 11th. So the morning we will wake up, it will be November 11th. So the operations was supposed to be carried out on the eve of November 11th, and Gambians would have been awoken to the news of the collapse of or the end of the military junta and a new civilian transitional government in place. That was the plan.
On that day, 10th November 1994, did you see any of the leaders of the planned coup?
Absolutely. On that very day, as I mentioned to this commission earlier, I live in the same barracks with Lieutenant Fall. Our quarters were just next to each other. And myself and Dr. Fall were totally responsible for the preparations in Fajara barracks, and the officers who were part of it, some of them left my house. We had lunch together in my house, late lunch. It was around 3 o'clock, 3:30. Lieutenant Lamin Jaju, Lieutenant Bakari Mane, Lieutenant Mod Lamin Dabo, they all had they had a meal in my house. That was the last meal I shared with them. And they left my house at 4:30 to go and start preparatory efforts at Yundum Barracks. So apparently I saw most of the officers on that very day.
And can you tell us what was discussed during that meeting?
Well, during our lunch meeting, for the most part, it was just confirming our respective operational roles, confirming our commitment to end military dictatorship, to restore the lost glory that our country enjoyed before the July 22nd. We were all very proud to be part of that effort. So in a nutshell, it was just a confirmation of our respective roles
This meeting ended at 4:30 or thereabout. Can you walk us through what happened afterwards?
Well, afterwards they left Fajara Barracks. They went to Yundum Barracks.
Who went to Yundum Barracks?
To Yundum Barracks, it was Lieutenant Lamin Dabo, Lieutenant Bakari Mane, Lieutenant Jaju. So those officers left my house, my quarters actually, to go and join orders at Yundum Barracks. Barrow was supposed to meet them there as well. So myself and Dotfal, we were in charge of the preparations in Fajara Barracks, since he was the adjutant at the time, and I was the battalion second in command at the time.
And what happened after this party left Fajara Barracks for Yundum Barracks, and you and Fal remained at Fajara Barracks? What happened next?
Well, when they went to Fajara Barracks, we didn't know that they were arrested until late in the evening, when things started unraveling. Because they went there, I believe they got arrested. They met council members there. The likes of, I believe, Edward Singate, Sadiku Hydra, and Sana Sabali were on the ground. And Barrow also came later, I understand, around 6 o'clock. Sometime around that time, 6 to 7, Barrow was also arrested. In fact, I understand Barrow was tortured, he was gun-boarded, he was bayoneted by Edward Singate. When the junior officers who were arrested earlier on were in Nigeri, they were put in the cells in Yundum, actually.
How did you get this information?
Because, as I said, the operation was supported by 75 to 80% of the army was behind this operation. So it was later on, as we were waiting, when we already did our mobilizations in Fajara Barracks, myself and Dotfal, we mobilized the men came in, we prepared them in terms of weaponry, we opened the armories, we equipped them with relevant weapons as any military operation would go through. And as we were waiting to get signals from Barrow, it took longer. We didn't hear any signals from Barrow. And apparently what happened was Dotfal and I decided we need to look into what was happening at Yundum, because there was no communication. So Dotfal decided that he would go to Yundum to see what was happening. So
I'm sorry for stopping you there, but perhaps let's try to get some little clarification, and to get some little more information as to what happened in between. You said Barrow left for Yundum Barracks. Other officers, you mentioned Lieutenant Lamin Jaju, Mamadou Lamin Dabo, and Mane. They all left for Yundum Barracks. And you later found out that they were arrested by members of the junta at Yundum Barracks. That's what you said, correct?
Yes, they were arrested.
And in the meantime, you and Dotfal were mobilizing soldiers at Fajara Barracks, correct?
That's correct.
Can you elucidate further what this mobilization entailed?
Well, when I say mobilization, I'm glad you brought that up. It meant simply we were preparing our men. We already had men who were part of the operation. We just had to prepare them to start putting the operational plan into action. So when I say mobilization, I mean largely, arming them, opening the armories, giving them the appropriate weaponry in the event that the platoon or the reinforcement is called, they would be prepared. So that is what I meant by mobilization. We already have the men in the Fajara barracks.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You gathered the men and got them to fall in, correct?
Very good. We gathered the men, we got them to fall in. That's correct.
You got them arms and ammunition, correct?
Correct, we did that.
You gave them operational orders, instructions as to what to do, correct?
Absolutely. We gave them operational orders. In fact, we even deployed some men at different parts of the barracks for strategic reasons. We had some men deployed at the training school area. We had some men deployed at the back gate area going towards Bakau Kachikali. And we also had men deployed towards the Newtown area. This was just to prepare in case of any sort of, in case anything happens, for the most part.
Can you tell us what the men were told as to what was about to happen, or why they were gathered there?
Well, the men already, they knew what was happening. They knew there was going to be a takeover, that we were ending the AFPRC rule in the Gambia, and that is the reason for the mobilization and preparation.
What do you say to the suggestion that the men were told that a force was about to invade and they had to be ready for battle?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I did listen to a witness who made that point, but unfortunately, I was involved in briefing the men. I remember on that very night, in front of the front gate, I assembled the men, myself and Dogfall, and I was the one who briefed the men. I briefed the men as to what was going to happen. There was not at any point that I can remember any one of us telling the men that there was an outside force coming to attack Fajara Barracks. I believe.
I am sorry for interrupting you.
Yes, I told them that the AFPRC, they have taken the country hostage. They have undermined our values and our norms, that our customs that define us as Gambians. And they have contradicted themselves by involving themselves in actions that indeed does not justify the reason they ended the former PPP regime. I told the men that we are a nation of respectful citizens. We are a nation that cherishes peace for a very, very long time, since attaining independence. If the APRC should stand before Gambian citizens, the nation as a whole, to tell them that they ended the Jawara regime because they wanted to end corruption, promote transparency, and the APRC themselves, they are acting in ways that contradicts that. If the APRC is seen dehumanizing our citizens, if the APRC is seen abusing human rights, then we as citizens need to step up and make sure that we restore constitutionality, we restore, our glory that defines us as Gambians since independence. So this way, it is going to happen that day and no other day.
Can you tell us what time of the day this briefing took place?
Well, my briefing took place in the early evening hours, like around 8 o'clock. It was already started getting dark. Around 8:30 to 9. That was when my briefing took place.
At this point in time, did you hear from Lieutenant Barrow and the other officers who went to Yundum Barracks?
At that point in time, we did not hear from Lieutenant
we are losing audio. Could you say again, Dr. Minteh? We didn't hear what you said.
At that point in time, we did not hear from Lieutenant Basiru Barrow. We were expecting to hear from him around 9 o'clock, 9:30, when they would be mobilizing, when they would be moving.
And what happened after you did not hear from them up to around 9:30? What happened after that?
Well, up to around 9:30, we did not hear from them. And what happened was Dr. Fala and I decided we should give it some time. We would slowly hear from them. But as we were giving them time, around, I believe it was around 10:30, going towards 11 o'clock, we received a call from Yundum Barracks. And the caller claimed to be calling on behalf of Barrow.
At this point, where was Dotfal?
Dotfal was with me in Fajara Barracks.
Can you proceed, please?
So the caller claimed to be calling on behalf of Barrow, that Barrow and others are all ready, and that he requested specifically for me. But when I went to talk to the caller, I knew something was not right, because I could tell from the caller's voice that he was sort of faking it.
Could you say again?
He was faking his voice. So I knew automatically he must have been a member of the council, the military council at the time. And specifically, I suspected he was Sana Sabali. That's what my instincts showed me. Let me remind you, I went to the same school with Sana Sabali, Amitage High School. So for some reason, my instinct was telling me it was, and then at sometimes I would think it was Tadibu Hydra, but I knew automatically that was not real. It was the guy who was making that call was faking it. He was trying to lure me.
And did you do anything as a result of that suspicion?
Well, as a result of that suspicion, I actually discussed that with Godfall. And Godfall later on said to me that he was going to go to Yundum Barracks. So he took some men with him. He said he was going to find out what was happening. And then I actually agreed with his idea. And then he went to Yundum. He left Fajara Barracks and went to Yundum.
What time of the evening did he leave Fajara Barracks to go to Yundum Barracks?
Well, I believe it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was a bit, it was getting late. It was like probably around 11:30, going 11 to 11:30, around that time. I may be wrong, but it was late. So he left to go to Yundum Barracks.
What happened
and
after
then
that?
as he left, 45 minutes after he left, I got another call from the same communications unit. And this time it was another different voice who was actually telling me that Barrow and others are already here. They were already in Yundum, and I should also come. That they want me to come. But since I knew that something really went wrong, what I did was I tried to figure out exactly what was going on at Yundum, but I knew something went wrong. Right after speaking to that caller, about 40 minutes later, somebody anonymous also called me. And this time, this caller was telling me in a very low tone, this caller was telling me that I should not come to Yundum Barracks. That what was happening at Yundum Barracks was just very horrific. He just said to me, don't come to Yundum Barracks. All these officers are arrested. Some of them are tortured. We don't even know whether they are alive or not. That's in a very low tone. This person, I don't know who this person was, but this person said to me, don't come to Yundum Barracks.
And what did you do as a result of that information?
Well, as a result of that information, as I was confiding with some of my NCOs who were on the ground at the time, myself, Warrant Officer Mami Bojang, there was another Staff Sergeant Sanyang. We were confiding, we all confirmed that something went wrong, that we needed to do something. And of course, Staff Sergeant Sanyang said to me that he was going to go around to solidify the defenses to make sure that the men are there. So as he left to do that, Fajara Barracks it came under attack. So it was only guns and gunfire, the sounds of gunfire as in a real war zone. And you could hear the shoutings, kill them all, kill them all. I could hear Sana Sabali's voice, kill them all, kill them all. So at that point, we knew that our operation had failed. So some of us left the Fajara Barracks. I left the Fajara Barracks. Myself and Warrant Officer Almami Bojang, and Staff Sergeant Sanyang, we all left Fajara Barracks. But before that, some of the men already abandoned their respective posts. I forgot to mention that before Dotfa left for Fajara, for Yundum, he made a patrol around Fajara Barracks to see if the men who were posted there were there. But some of the men had already left their respective positions. I believe they also had the sense that the operation had failed, or we were infiltrated before anything could happen. So when the attack started, we left Fajara Barracks. Myself, Warrant Officer Almami Bojang, we left Fajara Barracks together. But of course, what happened in Fajara Barracks, I believe is only the former council members who could tell you what they did in Fajara Barracks. All what you could hear, kill them all, and it is exactly what they did. They did not only resort to executing officers, but they killed every single man, every single soldier who they certainly came across in Fajara Barracks that night.
When you left Fajara Barracks, where did you go?
Well, when I left Fajara Barracks, I left Fajara Barracks through the African Village Hotel. So I was in Pacau with some very close families, monitoring the situation. And I had the vice chairman, the former vice chairman, Sana Sabali, addressing the Gambian people that they foiled a coup attempt, and in the process there were he mentioned Barrow in particular, that Barrow was killed. I was in Kachikali for a few days, but obviously, since I was being hunted, I knew my family I was staying with, they knew that was not the place I was supposed to be. So I moved to another location. I moved to Fajara myself. I was right behind the barracks with another family friend monitoring the situation. I didn't want to leave the country right away. And in the process, whilst I was moving from place to place, I did interacted with some men at some point. These are men I trained, but they indeed were very well protective of my safety as well.
And did you remain in Fajara?
No, I did not remain in Fajara. So I stayed in Fajara for another few days. And then I was also in consultation. I was also trying to meet my dad. So I did not. I moved from Fajara. I came to Joshua. So that was where I met my dad. I just wanted to meet my dad at that point, but my dad sent me a message that he was coming. He was going to come meet me. So my dad came and met me. He prayed for me and said to me that I will be okay and I should leave the country the following Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, if I could recall. So my dad prepared my trip. So I left Joshua with the help of a family. He was an in-law to me because he was married. He's still married to my sister. He was a taxi driver. So he drove me all the way to Brikama, going through Siliti, and then we branch off. We didn't go through the security checkpost, but we branch off before we get to the security, and then into the woods. There are feeder roads there that got me into Casamas to evade the security, and then I found myself in Senegal. So right there, that was where I boarded the transport to take me to Tambacounda, because that was where my father wanted to meet me. And of course, Tambacounda was the home of my in-laws at the time. And I have a family there, very close family. So that very night I got to Tambacounda. My family escorted me straight to the governor's residence. So the governor at the time was Saliu Ramaka, a very fine governor who treated me very well. That very night he instructed the gendarmerie personnel and the intelligence agents to take me to Hotel Astakebe, where I was lodged. They accorded me protection, and obviously, as an officer of the former National Gendarmerie, the Gendarmerie commander at the time was in Senegal. It was General Pathé Seck. And there was also the Gendarmerie company commander within that greater, I believe, Gendarmerie protectorate. who also served in the Gambia at the time. So I was treated really, really well. They took my statements. They accorded me with all, treatments, very good treatments, and facilitated my trip to Dakar to declare myself to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees.
Did you, at any point in time, come to learn about what happened at Yundum Barracks?
Absolutely. I learned what happened at Yundum Barracks after some of my colleagues who escaped the horrific atrocities of the military junta in Yundum Barracks and the Nyambai Forest. I learned that they were in Casamas at the gendarmerie camp, at the gendarmerie headquarters, and these officers were the late Lieutenant Lamin Jaju, Sub-Lieutenant Elef Jame, Sub-Lieutenant Aliuba. They call him a chopping. So the gendarmerie in Tamba were able to link me up with them, and they narrated the horrific nature of the events that unfolded in Yundum. That in fact they escaped the summary execution line. They were asked to run for their lives when they were ready to kill them, and in the process, that was when they escaped. But they narrated for me that Barrow was killed by Edward Singate. When Barrow arrived at Yundum Barracks, they narrated to me that Barrow was gun-boarded, bayoneted by Edward Singate and his men, his guards. In fact, Edward Singate shot him. The first shot that Barrow received was by Edward Singate. He shot him at his stomach. He bayoneted him, gun-boarded him. He did a similar thing to Dotfal, Sana Sabali and others. They were all involved in unleashing such horrific, barbaric acts against unarmed officers. When Barrow was arrested, he had no guns. He just walked into Yundum Barracks and he shouted, "Are you ready?" When the councilmen were already on the ground. And he was met with, this was what was narrated to me, he was met with barbarity and brutality. And when Dotfal arrived, he faced a similar fate. That they were tortured and beaten in ways that you would not imagine. That somebody you work with in the military, somebody you ate with, somebody you serve with, to treat that person in such an inhumane way, it was definitely, it was sad what happened in Yundum.
Do you know how many people were killed in Yundum?
In Yundum, I don't know exactly how many people were killed in Yundum, but I can tell you for sure from witnesses who were there. And as time goes on, as this commission tries to know the facts around November 11, you will hear chilling details about the barbaric nature of Edward Singate, Sana Sabali, and Sadibu Hydra and their guards. I know for a fact that Lieutenant Jibril Say, who was not even part of the coup, I don't even know that his name did not come up at any time during my discussion with Barrow, during my discussion with Lieutenant Abdullah Fall. Lieutenant Jibril Say reported to work, and he was arrested. And I came to learn that before the November 11 incident, Lieutenant Jibril Say was not seen eye to eye with before even the July 22nd coup. He intermittently had problems with Edward Singate. So Edward and his men, they killed Lieutenant Jibril Say in one of the most horrific ways. They did not only end up killing him, but they chopped him into two because he was tall, and they buried him in a latrine pit. So Gambians should know that that was the Edward Singate they were dealing with. That was the Sana Sabali they were dealing with. That was the Yaya Jammeh they were dealing with.
How about
so some men were, some of the officers are buried right by the cookhouse, the latrine at the cookhouse in Yundum. And some officers were brought all the way to Fajara Barracks. Dogfal was brought to Fajara Barracks. And if some of the witnesses tell you how Dogfal was killed, you would not even want to see Edward Singate before this commission. They killed Dogfal and others in some of the most brutal ways. Dogfal was shot several times, beaten, gun bayoneted, and even after they knew that he was not dead, they continued to unleash their barbaric nature on Dogfal. There are accounts that detail Edward Singate blowing up Dogfal's head with a big rock. Executions took place in Fajara Barracks. I was not, many may be questioning, how did you know all these details? But I was part of the clan, and after I left very safely the country, I was opportune to interact, to maintain contact with not only my colleagues at Casamas, but members of the armed forces who continue to serve in the army, who were witnesses to the barbarity unleashed by Yaya Jammeh and his group of bandits.
Dr. Minteh, can you kindly reduce the volume of your laptop? I think it's interfering with the sound we are hearing here. Okay. You just told us some of the things that happened in the two barracks, Fajara Barracks and Yundum Barracks. Of course, you were not present when all these events unfolded. You heard this from former colleagues in the armed forces, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Thank you very much. I'm sure we would hear first-hand accounts of what actually happened during these incidents, during these events at both Fajara Barracks and Yundum Barracks. In the meantime, you told us you went to call to Tambacounda in Senegal, and you received assistance from the Senegalese gendarmerie. What did you do next while you were in Tambacounda?
While I was in Tambacounda, I was actually supported by the Senegalese to link up with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. I knew automatically that I was a refugee, and I encouraged my colleagues who were at Casamas as well, in Zigansor, to take the same path. In fact, I told them that I was going to Dakar to meet the United Nations High Commission Protection Officer, and the governor of Tambacounda facilitated that for me. He made arrangements, and I was able to go to Dakar. When I went to Dakar, I indeed registered my situation with UNHCR, and I was accorded protection by UNHCR. And I also encourage my friends, my colleagues at Zigansor at the time, to do the same thing. In fact, at some point, I even linked them up with the protection officer. I could fully remember the protection officer at the time was a Canadian woman, Madame Blom, and the commissioner at the time was a Chadian. He was a Chadian. Yeah, so I was accorded protection, which indeed made it possible for me to benefit from UNHCR refugee benefits at the time, in terms of health care, in terms of being able to sustain myself, pay for my rent, and support my livelihood. And I also indeed visited several other agencies within the Senegalese security architecture. Their National Intelligence Agency. I paid a few visits there myself to undergo sort of an intelligence interrogation as to what happened, and also to seek my views about the future of the Gambia, the plight of the Gambia, for the most part. So I was in Dakar under UN protection until when the United Nations do have programs for refugees, and some of their programs included not only providing a stipend for them to support their livelihood, but also programs where you could start your own small business ventures if you want to stay in the country, and they also have resettlement programs. So it happened when the United States was actually working with the UN to resettle 5,000 refugees into the United States. This was in the year 1997. It happens in periods when West Africa was indeed what many scholars would call the periphery of the periphery at the time. Coups and conflicts, violent conflicts in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and of course led to a displacement of hundreds of thousands of citizens. So the United States, in collaboration with the United Nations, were working to resettle refugees. So my name was presented by the UN to benefit from that program. And I even encouraged my colleagues. My reasoning to my colleagues in Casamas was that it was an opportunity for us to go develop ourselves and equip ourselves with tools to better challenge the military regime. And my emphasis to them was if we can only delegitimize Jammeh, the military regime, there is not only one way of unseating them. I mean, we should not resort to limit ourselves to only maybe using, an insurgent approach, but the power of civil society, and we can be part of that civil society. So let's take advantage. But they insisted that they were definitely not in that position. They don't want to explore that, but they encouraged me to nonetheless go ahead and take advantage of the opportunity. So that's how I got integrated into the United States in 1997 as a refugee.
Obviously, Dr. Minteh, you educated yourself while in the United States, and that's why you now have the lofty accolade of doctor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What eventually happened to some of your colleagues who were in the Casamas?
Well, some of my colleagues who were in the Casamas, it was very sad, unfortunate that one day while I was a student at Salt Lake Community College, I was working on my English 101 writing assignment in the library, and then as I was browsing Gambian news, I read that my colleagues attacked, they launched an attack on a barracks at Khartoum, and they succeeded. They overran that barracks, but on their way to Yundum, they were contained. They met loyal forces to the AFPRC, and they were arrested. I learned that my colleagues were arrested. That's Lieutenant Lamin Jeju, their soul rest in peace, Sub-Lieutenant Abdullah Ba, and Sub-Lieutenant LF Jammeh.
Do you know what eventually happened to those people, those three officers?
Well, those three officers were eventually, they were tortured, very, very well. They were tortured. They were tortured, and they were charged, and they were sentenced. I think the death penalty was handed to them. So they were in Mile 2 for a very long time, until when Yahya Jammeh decided that he should take the law into his hands and enforce the death penalty by executing 9 death row inmates. So unfortunately, my colleagues were part of the 9 inmates who were executed.
Mr. Chairman, it's well past 5 o'clock. I would want to leave it at that for Dr. Minteh. So I'd allow the commissioners to ask questions before Dr. Minteh is given the opportunity to say a few words about what is his vision for this new Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council, and thank you, Dr. Minteh, for your testimony. One quick question before I turn to the commissioners. You made reference to Nyambai Forest. What happened there?
Well, in Nyambai Forest, according to my colleagues, some of the officers were taken to Nyambai Forest to be executed. So some executions took place in Nyambai Forest. So extrajudicial killings took place in Nyambai Forest.
Do you know the number that were killed?
I don't know the exact number, but I believe when eyewitnesses testify before this commission, they would indeed tell this commission details of what happened in the Nyambai Forest and the Brikama firing range and the Fajara barracks.
Thank you very much, commissioners. Have any questions? No? No. Okay, well, no. Thank you very much. Council, you want to get into closing remarks?
Yes.
Dr. Minteh, you have some closing remarks to make. If you do, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, distinguished commissioners. Thank you to lead council and all your investigators. What happened in the Gambia, 22 years of military or dictatorship, indeed is a call to action for all Gambians. We should ask ourselves how we got there and the impact the military coup of July 22nd, 1994 had on Gambia. And when we ask ourselves how we got there, we should ask ourselves what our roles and responsibilities were, individually as citizens, as a community, and we should also ask ourselves the role of our institutions. So in response to those questions, it is important to clearly analyze what we all did from July 1994 that brought Yahya Jammeh to power until when we decided to come together as a nation and speak with one voice and send Yahya Jammeh out of our midst. I think we all have a responsibility because as human beings, we all have a moral conscience. We all know what is right and what is wrong. And the decisions each and every one of us made to support Yahya Jammeh from July 22nd, 1994 up to the day he left, it is important for us to review those decisions and make judgments for ourselves. At the community level, I mentioned before this commission here that the Gambia was known as a bastion of peace, as a bastion of progress. And that largely is due to our cherished values. And that made us to enjoy a glory which was taken from us overnight. So our communities need to ask themselves, be it a cultural organization, be it a religious community, be it even at the Alcalo Sefo level, the local level, what each and every community did that supported Yahya Jammeh's rule. So I think it is very, very important. Once we are able to answer that for ourselves, we'll be able to know that whether we could have done things differently. Because under Yahya Jammeh, we've seen our communities, cultural communities, social communities, local communities, yes, were very quiet. They kept a tight lip. Even religious communities, in the face of banditry, in the face of tyranny, in the face of wanton human rights abuses, people continue to dance and chant for Yahya Jammeh, that he was the warrior, that he was the supreme leader. That contradicts all what we stood for as a nation. That contradicts even our religious values. It was only the Christian community that we have seen made some attempts under daring circumstances to bring to light before the dictator. And if we look at the Gambia, we are almost 95 up to 99% Muslims. Yahya Jammeh would hold the Quran on one hand, has a tasbih on another hand, and he swears to God by threatening people as if he was the Almighty God. And yet people continue to dance and chant for Yahya Jammeh. I think these are things we need to look at as citizens. At the level of the institutions, it is important to look at the role of our institutions. Some of the witnesses indeed included myself, provided indeed circumstances under which institutional failure indeed brought us this far. Could we have done things differently? So these are some of the things we need to explore as Gambians. But overall, when we put all these perspectives into context, we come to see that unity means power, it means strength. When our conscience dictated to us that we should come together and confront Jammeh, which we did in the last presidential elections, we all saw how that worked. So unity, indeed, especially from that experience, should teach us a lesson that as Gambians, we need to make sure that at the individual level, at the community level, at the institutional level, we stand up for what is right. As per our national anthem, let justice guide our actions. Our national anthem echoes common goodness. So we need to cherish those calls in our national anthem. Treat one another with dignity, with respect. And what happened on November 11, 1994. Of course, we've had a lot of depictions made against former the late officers, my colleagues who were part of this noble venture. For those who were depicting them as a criminal, as bandits, you got it all wrong. Lieutenant Basiru Baro, Lieutenant Buba Jame, Lieutenant Modlamin Dabo, Officer Kedet Silla, Warrant Officer Fafanyang, Lieutenant Modlamin Momodu Mane, and all the others who lost their lives. These are honorable citizens. They are citizens who meant well for the Gambia. Their intentions were clear. They had no ill intentions to overthrow the regime and perpetuate themselves. None of us had that intention. In fact, what motivated our actions were largely to restore our lost glory, because what we saw happen after the July 22nd coup was a group of irresponsible young officers, the likes of Yaya Jammeh, the likes of Sana Sabali, the likes of Sadibu Hydra, the likes of Edward Singate, the likes of Yankuba Ture, perpetuating themselves, plundering into national resources, unleashing degrading and inhumane situations on citizens, dehumanizing public officials, respected personalities in our society. Is that the type of country we want? These were some of the questions we asked ourselves. That was why we stood for or against the military junta, because we wanted to restore those lost glories that Gambia has always been known for. And for the purpose of dignifying our lost colleagues, I challenge this commission to ensure that we pay respect to these gallant officers and men by finding out where they are buried, by ensuring that we accord them a proper burial. And I also similarly recommend before this commission that one thing we can do as a nation is to make sure we undertake our reconciliation efforts in ways that will support the Never Again campaign. We should understand that justice and reconciliation, they fall on different sides of the truth reconciliation pendulum. Forgiveness also falls on a different side. To forgive means to let go. But of course, to let go is also enabling us to prevent citizens from embarking on any forms of vengeance. But what we need to understand, if you forgive and there is no justice, it will make things very, very complicated. We need to know that there is a social contract that binds us as citizens. In the Gambia, it is our constitution that largely outlines laws, principles. Internationally, it's international laws and treaties that our nation is binded to. Our social contract is not compromised. We need to make sure that the fullest principles, laws that are outlined, and if any of these laws, norms, principles are violated, we hold people accountable. Institutional reforms is critical. To restore confidence in our institutions, we need to ensure that we pay farewell to patrimonial tendencies. And by patrimonial tendencies, I mean by having institutions that pay allegiance to only one person. Institutions that are defined by principles of loyalty to one person. It is an institution that is not rule bound. So we need to pay farewell to institutions like that. We need to support institutionalization of our institutions, because there is evidence showing a correlation of the function of institution type to political stability. So the armed forces, of course, is critical. We need to make sure that we have an armed forces, a security forces that is defined by a rule-based in terms of promotions, in terms of designation of responsibility, training, in terms of an armed forces that is subservient to civilian rule. Because the armed forces, security forces should only be answerable to civilians and not any other, entity. Security forces should protect the constitution in that regards. And when it comes to personnel, it is important that this commission considers those who are all wrongfully terminated from not only the military institution. Let them be given the opportunity to either get their jobs back, or let them be retired in dignity with all their allowances, with all their dues paid. People join the service because of love for the country. I remember myself as an example. I was inspired by generals who stood up to defend the greater goodness of humanity, who stood up for the love of country. That is why I joined the military. In fact, I started manifesting that when I joined the Boy Scout, when I was at Armitage High School. And of course, to take that further, when the opportunity came my way to serve, to protect the common goodness, I took advantage of it. My colleagues in November 11, they similarly joined the military institutions to protect the greater goodness of the country. And justice, to wrap up my message to Gambians, I think it is important that we hold ourselves accountable to the laws of our country and to international law. Because, of course, to have institutions where we have torturers, people who committed torture, people who committed other human rights violations, does not build trust in our institutions. International law and proponents of international law, civil society, academics, they hold the view that to fully uphold our provisions and our commitments under both national and international law, we must hold people accountable. We must hold people accountable, I repeat. We must make sure that people who committed torture, who committed murder, who inflicted inhumane and degrading situations on our society be named, be shamed, and face justice. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to take you up on your promise to provide us with a list of names of those civilians who were in consultations with the members of the party that was organizing the November 11 coup d'etat. So do kindly send that list to the commission, and we would include it in the list of evidence. Would you be in a position to do that, sir?
all, I made it clear before the commission that I was not presented with a list, but names of civilian prominent, a few names were mentioned to me that indeed made me to have confidence
Would
in
you be willing?
the efforts.
Would you be willing to provide those names to the commission?
Absolutely,
Not
I
publicly,
would be
but
willing to
in
provide
writing.
those names.
How soon would you be available to do that? I take it that you can do that immediately after this sitting. Is that possible?
Absolutely, I would be sure to do that immediately after this sitting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Minteh, and for your very powerful general concluding remarks. I'm particularly happy that you went beyond. You come from a military background. Your general remarks weren't limited to things that we heard here before. Discipline in the army, civilian interference with the armed forces, or even deployment of Nigerian officers here in the Gambia. But you went into what is a good reminder for all of us about our individual and collective responsibilities. You repose this in areas of individuals, communities, and at the society level. Yes, against the background of what you referred to, Gambia known as a bastion for peace and stability. The character of the people, very friendly, very peaceful, quite tolerant, and forgiving, as you said. How on earth can you have a society like that sink to the abyss of a dark age of brutality and torture that really happened? Things that we're hearing here. I'm glad that you mentioned those individual responsibilities. There are questions that are being raised here. What was it that went wrong in a society like this? It's a fundamental question. The character of the people, how could things like this happen here? Chopping up people, throwing them in latrines, brutalizing senior people. You know, the respect that we have for seniors here, people who would have done nothing. I'm just echoing a few things. Yes, these things are puzzling. They happen in societies. In Germany, Germany was a very, very well advanced society in every area. How could they, within a short period, 1933 to 1945, sink to the level that they sank? People are still asking the question. We are going to be asking the same questions here in the Gambia. But thank you again so much for those very general remarks and reminding us about our responsibilities. Thank you again for taking time to be with us twice on Skype. A bit burdensome, but I think it went very well indeed. Again, many thanks. We appreciate your contribution to the work of the Commission. If there are no questions, Council, we'll meet again tomorrow at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you all very much indeed. Meeting is adjourned.